To all the skeptics in the comments, I promise this is my actual biological voice you're hearing, not an AI, it's 100% organic. I haven't had a firmware update in years. Welcome to the digital Colosseum, where the lions are out of shape, the gladiators have Twitch, Kick, and YouTube, and the audience is mostly just here to see who gets cancelled first. I'm standing in the middle of this three-ring circus, as the only person not currently trying to sell you a subscription to a lifestyle I can't afford. I'm dissecting the clash between the two titans of Twitch's political brain rot, Hasan Piker and Asmongold. One looks like he was sculpted by a Marxist committee to sell overpriced linen shirts, and the other looks like a wizard who lost his tower in a divorce and now hibernates on a diet of Dr. Pepper and Sprite. If you've spent more than 5 minutes on the political side of the internet, you know the drill. Everyone has the correct take, but nobody wants to actually defend it unless they're in a room full of people who already agree with them. I call this the safe space survival guide. I'm seeing a fascinating trend where the intellectual wings of the internet, the left, right and middle, are treating open debate like a vampire treats a tanning bed. They claim it's because their opponents are too bad faith or dangerous, but let's be real for a second. If your world-shattering ideology can't survive a 30-minute conversation with a guy who hasn't seen a vegetable since the Obama administration, your ideology isn't a fortress of truth, it's a wet cardboard box. This saga kicks things off by noting that these commentators avoid debates because their arguments can be fragile, and honestly I'm not wrong. Watching some of these creators try to pivot when a simple why is asked is like watching a cat try to walk on ice. It's hilarious, and it's why long-form content maybe is dying in favor of react videos where you can just pause the video and yell at a screen that can't talk back. But the real spice here is the dethroning of the king. For years, Hasan Piker was the undisputed heavyweight champion of Twitch politics. He was the himbo of the revolution, broadcasting from his multi-million-dollar mansion. But then enter Asmongold. Now, look at Asmond. He's a guy who built an empire by playing World of Warcraft and refusing to clean his room. He's the physical embodiment of a NEET who accidentally became a philosopher king because he has the one thing most political streamers lack, a lack of filter. I gleefully report that Asmond has snatched the crown. This is the ultimate humiliation for the professional political class. Imagine spending years studying theory, refining your aesthetic, and building a sophisticated media machine, only to lose your audience to a guy who looks like he's about to offer you a side quest in a swamp. It's not just a shift in numbers, it's a shift in culture. People are tired of the polished narrative. They'd rather listen to a guy who's honest about his own filth than a guy who's dishonest about his own privilege. The positive for Hasan, he built a massive platform and made politics cool for a younger generation. That's an achievement even if you hate his guts. The positive for Asmond, he's authentic. You know exactly what you're getting, even if what you're getting is a lecture on taxes from a man who uses a shirt as a napkin. The negative for both, they're both trapped in the Twitch bubble. Whether you're a revolutionary or a freethinker, you're still ultimately at the mercy of a chat room full of teenagers who just want to see someone get owned. I dive into the murky waters of political branding. The bold claim is that Asmongold is a freethinker, while Hasan is a narrative-driven pretzel. Let's unpack the freethinker tag first. It's the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card on the internet. If you call yourself a freethinker, it basically means you can say whatever pops into your head without having to be consistent. It's a great brand for Asmond. He can agree with a leftist point on healthcare, and then turn around and say something that would make a Victorian industrialist blush. His audience loves it because it feels real. It's the guy at the bar vibe. But is it actually free thinking? Or is it just thinking out loud without doing the homework? There's a fine line between being an independent spirit and just being a guy with a microphone and no editor. Asmongold rejects political boxes, but let's be honest, the common sense box is just as much of a cage as any other. It allows you to ignore nuance in favor of gut feelings. Then we have Hasan, the narrative-driven pretzel. The roast here is that Hasan has to twist himself into knots to keep his audience happy. This is what we call audience capture. When your entire brand is the voice of the left, you can't exactly come out and say, "Actually, I think the billionaire has a point here." You'd be eaten alive by your own community before the VOD even finished processing. Hasan as a guy who is perpetually worried about his unsub button. It's a stressful way to live. Imagine having to check the political winds every time you want to order a sandwich. Is this bread exploited? Is the turkey part of a systemic injustice? It's exhausting. The contrast is sharp. Asmongold is portrayed as the guy who doesn't care if you like him, which paradoxically makes people like him more. Hasan is portrayed as the guy who desperately wants to be the cool teacher, but the kids in the back of the class are starting to realize he's just reading from the textbook. The irony is that both of them are incredibly audience captured. Asmon's common sense takes are exactly what his audience of jaded gamers wants to hear. Hasan's revolutionary takes are exactly what his audience of college students wants to hear. They aren't leaders, they're mirrors. They're reflecting back the biases of the people paying their bills. One is just better at pretending he isn't. If you want to see a millionaire act like a thirsty bot, this is where the cringe reaches critical mass. Let's recount how Hasan, allegedly seething after losing his top spot, decided to enter Asmongold's chat uninvited. Now let's look at this objectively. On one hand, you could say Hasan was just trying to engage in the marketplace of ideas. On the other hand, it looks like a guy who used to be the star of the football team, showing up at a party he wasn't invited to, just to remind everyone he once threw a touchdown. I paint a picture of desperation. When you're at the top, you don't go to other people's chats to argue. You let them come to you. You sit on your throne of subs and ignore the noise. But when the numbers start to dip, and the Asmond is the new king clips start circulating, the ego starts to bruise. Entering a rival's chat to provoke a debate is the digital equivalent of standing outside someone's window with a boombox, except instead of Peter Gabriel, you're playing a 4-hour lecture on dialectical materialism. It's a bold move, but it reeks of a need for relevance. Hasan has his own massive platform, so why go to Asmon's? Because Asmongold has the eyes that Hasan is losing. He has the normies. Hasan's audience is often a closed loop. Asmon's audience is the Wild West. But let's flip the script. Is Asmon clout chasing too? I say Asmon was organically drawn into this. Sure, but let's not pretend Asmon doesn't know that a Hasan versus Asmongold thumbnail is pure gold for the algorithm. He played it perfectly. He stayed in his lane, let Hasan come to him, and then responded with the weary patience of a man dealing with a persistent telemarketer. This part of the story highlights the high school nature of Twitch. These are grown men, with more money than most small towns, yet they're fighting over who got more poggers in the chat. It's a masterclass in how the internet shrinks our brains. Han's mistake, he looked like he cared too much. In the world of cool, the person who cares the least wins. Asmon's win, he played the reluctant participant, which gave him the moral high ground in the eyes of the casual viewer. We've reached the peak of the absurdity. This covers a debate regarding police compliance, and it is a dumpster fire of internet logic versus actual reality. Hasan allegedly suggested that if you're being pulled over or in a tense situation with the police, you should just drive away. I mean, let's take a second to process that. Just drive away. Can you actually believe he said that? That is advice that will get you a starring role in a high-speed chase video on the 6 o'clock news. It's the kind of thing someone says when they've spent too much time watching movies and not enough time interacting with the physical world. Please don't do this unless you want your life to become a Grand Theft Auto 1-star pursuit that ends poorly. It's a savage but necessary reality check. This is where the intellectual branding of Hasan hits a wall. You can talk about systemic issues all day, and there are plenty of valid things to say there, but giving people advice that will literally get them shot or jailed is dangerous and irresponsible. But then, the roast takes a turn for the petty, and I love it. We move from legal advice to a literal skill issue. This sounds like a low blow, but in the context of a high IQ political thinker, it's a brilliant observation. If you are a professional communicator who spends 10 hours a day on a computer, and you still type like a toddler trying to peel a grape, what does that say about your general competence? I argue that Hasan's lack of dexterity is a metaphor for his arguments slow, clunky, and prone to typos of logic. It's a hilarious image, this revolutionary leader struggling to find the P key while trying to dismantle capitalism. The problem with Hasan's stance, it's ivory tower activism. It's easy to say just drive away when you have a legal team and a public profile. It's terrible advice for the average person. The problem with the roast mocking typing speed is peak gamer behavior. It's funny, but it's also the digital version of making fun of someone's haircut because you can't beat their argument. Though in this case, the argument was already doing a pretty good job of beating itself. This section exposes the performative nature of the debate. It's not about finding a solution to police reform, it's about who can look more principled, while being completely disconnected from how a traffic stop actually works. Now we get to the ad hominem meat of the burger. This explores the massive disconnect between the personas these two men project and the lives they actually lead. First up, Hasan, the trust fund revolutionary. Though to be fair, he's more of a self-made multi-millionaire now, but the privilege tag sticks like glue. I go for the jugular here, pointing out that Hasan's cushy life makes his Antifa-adjacent LARPing look ridiculous. The argument is simple. The only thing Hasan would actually do in a real-life police standoff is piss his pants and comply. It's a dark, cynical take, but it hits on a fundamental truth about internet activism. It's easy to be a radical from behind a $500 microphone in a gated community. I call him out for being inconsistent with how he would act in real life. He's selling a rebellion he isn't participating in. Then we look at Asmongold, the accidental activist. Asmond is the polar opposite. He doesn't have a lifestyle brand. His brand is, I live in a house that might be condemned by the health department, but at least I'm honest about it. He's the NEET who stumbled into politics because he has a common sense filter that resonates with people who are tired of being lectured. I portray Asmond as consistent and unfiltered. And while that's true, let's look at the negative. Being organically drawn into politics often means you're just reacting to things you don't understand without any historical or social context. Asmond's common sense is often just the status quo with a bit of spice. The roast here is a clash of aesthetics. Hasan looks like a model, talks like a textbook, lives like a billionaire. Asmongold looks like he hasn't showered since 2019, talks like your grumpy uncle, lives like a gamer who forgot the sun exists. I argue that Hasan's persona is manufactured to exploit a niche, the echo chamber enthusiasts. It's a business model, not a worldview. Meanwhile, Asmond is just Asmond. He didn't choose the politics chose the guy who was too lazy to stop streaming. It's a battle between performance versus authenticity. But on the internet, authenticity is also performance. Asmond knows exactly what his audience loves about his gross lifestyle. He leans into it just as much as Hasan leans into his fashionable socialism. They're both playing characters, one just wears a suit of armor made of unwashed laundry. We've reached the finale. I wrap this whole saga up by framing it as a war between common sense and manufactured ideology. The conclusion is bleak. The modern political divide isn't left versus right anymore. It's people who value actual context versus people who value narrative loyalty. I argue that for the modern left, represented by Hasan, the truth is secondary to whether or not something supports the orange man bad or systemic everything narrative. It's a classic anti-woke conclusion, and it's very popular with the YouTube common sense crowd. But let's be objective. Common sense is often just a code word for my personal bias. When people say they want truth and nuance, they usually mean they want someone to agree with them in a way that sounds smart. I accuse Hasan of being a shapeshifter and a clout-chasing leech who cycles through personas to maintain influence. This is the darkest part of the roast, the idea that there is no real Hasan, only a series of business decisions designed to harvest engagement from a specific audience. It's a cold, cynical view of content creation. But is Asmond any different? I frame him as the truth teller, but Asmond is also an industry. He's a reaction machine. He thrives on the very manufactured drama that I claim to hate. Without frauds like Hasan to react to, what would Asmond talk about? He needs the narrative just as much as Hasan needs the revolution. The final verdict from me. It's a story as old as time, the elite versus the real one. But as viewers, we have to see the irony here. Both are millionaires, both are part of the same massive media industry, and neither is exactly leading a revolution from their bedroom. We're the ones watching the show, while they both cash the same checks. I end by saying, narrative loyalty defines the modern left more than truth. It's a sharp tongue-parting shot that will surely get the ad viewer-friendly curiosity seekers clicking the like button. The final verdict is simple. One is labeled something, the other real. Elite versus man of the people. Both millionaires, both entertainers, neither revolutionary. The only guaranteed winner is the platform collecting ad revenue.